Welcome back to a surprise episode of the UNIBLOCK. So we're disrupting the PS5 QuantumX series a little bit to bring you this because now's the right time to show all your feedback, to talk about your comments, and to say what the future of the UNIBLOCK project is.
Yeah, we had some pretty nice feedback from you guys, so I think we should jump into it, right?
Yeah, let's go through the questions.
QuantumX. M.2 replacement is too hard.
And I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, that is a factually accurate statement. It is too hard. You would have to take off the whole top block, which means your GPU comes out, and then the whole lower block, and then there's still the extra copper plate that was under them, and yeah, it's genuinely a big job to replace a drive which might not even have broken. You might just want to upgrade, you might just want to change. So that was for sure a big drawback and a very fair comment.
Taken into account.
Will there be a version for delidded CPUs?
Yeah, actually you could fit delidded parts to this. So because this used a Velocity 2 cooling engine and all the kits are basically modular at the moment, so any Momentum 2 monoblock and any Velocity 2 CPU block for LGA 1700 can get the LGA 1700 delidded parts. So yeah, this could have had it.
This could easily have it, yeah.
How can you improve modularity?
Modularity itself was a bit of a setback here because we kind of limited ourselves to the hardware that we use. So the Extreme Z790 and the Strix 3090. This block was obsolete when we actually finished it. So in water cooling we have modularity with blocks itself. For each hardware component you have a block, if it's either a monoblock or the GPU block. With this, it's a uniblock, so it's one block limited to specific hardware, and that's kind of was the whole idea. But yeah, we do agree that modularity needs to get on board with this project.
Yeah, I think our response to it is definitely going to be keeping independent blocks, but learning how we can interface them, how they could join together. Could they use the same kind of push style as the lower and top half of this block? And ultimately like mechanically resolve it, not necessarily make one big thing.
What happens if you destroy a CPU?
I think that question also applies to the previous question with modularity itself. So yeah, if you destroy a CPU, you actually have to drain the whole loop, take the block apart, both blocks apart, the GPU, everything basically. So just for you to access the CPU, it's quite a lot of a challenge.
Yeah, weirdly, CPU replacement is just as horrible as the M2 drives. GPU replacement is not awful.
Not awful as much.
Yeah, yeah. Like removing a GPU from it, that's probably the same amount of work as you saved when you did the original build from not having to do tubes.
Yeah, I would agree, yeah.
Yeah.
I would like it without the pump so I can use a D5.
That's again a really fair comment. Not having the DDC in it wouldn't have really changed actually how big it could be. We couldn't make it flatter or smaller or narrower, you know, it was all defined by the hardware and mostly by the motherboard. So that's why we have it. I can appreciate why you wouldn't want it. And then you could use it with distro plates, you could use it with any form of reservoir or case that has a distro plate included, like any combination of stuff. So yeah, I guess why having a pump in something can be.
Yeah, once again, I think we are addressing the issue of modularity here.
Yeah.
Are you going to sell it now, or was it just for fun?
I think fun combined with what we can do and address the market itself is an obvious response to that.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, we're never doing anything purely for fun. Like, you know, it wasn't our entertainment. This isn't something that you can do bored on your lunch break, but okay, you can start. You can go and start on your lunch break. But you're not going to finish. So, no, it wasn't for fun. Like, we learned a lot. Our, you know, everyone from machinists to sourcing to quality, like there's something for everyone in the whole company to learn from it. We also got to make the videos. We got to show it to you, and we also learn a little bit about what you like, what you think. Is it too radical for right now? Is it definitely going to happen next year? Is it, you know, if it exploded in popularity and we needed to make the product work, then it would, you know, drive the focus of our whole R&D. We just did it in a way that was not too intensive, just to prove the point.
For this version, I think this is kind of obsolete by now, so maybe for future hardware, we would consider it, right, Joe?
Yeah, we consider it. I mean, I think the biggest challenge is that this is something you would want when both the motherboard and the graphics card was still fresh on the market. And like, as of right now, that's critical time for us to just be making standalone GPU blocks, because we're going to sell thousands and not 10. So we could never like give resources to doing this at the most critical time of the year for us when a graphics card launch is coming. So that's one thing that is going to make it super difficult.
No consideration was taken for maintenance.
And we're back to modularity.
Yeah. I mean, it's not fair to say none, because everything is still screwed together. It's got quite a nice assembly order. It's not the worst thing in the world. You can take every cold plate off, you can clean it, you can do stuff, but you can't really work on your build.
It's, once again, a lot of a challenge, I would say, to take it apart and to assemble it as well.
Yeah, I mean, that was the point in the project. Like, by virtue of combining everything, we made it extremely hard to do any one thing on its own. You have to do every job every time you want to do one job.
Why did you cool the RAM?
It wouldn't be fair if we left it out.
Yeah,
and I mean, cooled everything else, so
yeah,
why not the RAM?
Literally cooled everything. As for the like why not? Why cool the chipset? Why cool the M2s? Why cool even the VRM? You know, it was adequately cooled in the beginning, but you know, now we've also made something that's suitable for a different environment. You could put it somewhere with zero airflow. You could put it somewhere really flat, and yeah, why not?
5 people want to buy one as it is.
I think we have to let them down.
Yeah.
This one.
Unfortunately, making 5 just isn't really an option. There's a hell of a lot of parts to it. Every cold plate practically, besides the CPU cold plate, was unique. Every part was special. Mitchie doesn't want to glue the O-rings together again.
True.
Basically need to make like 500 sets for it to be worth making an O-ring tool.
Yeah, I think we won't sell 500 of them.
Yeah, no, that's not going to happen. So
I would say sorry.
Yeah, really sorry. Like, thanks for following the project, and it was great to do it. And unfortunately, it's not going to make production.
UNIBLOCK project discontinued.
So thanks to everyone that followed the video so far, and I'm ecstatic that 5 people want to buy it, and someone even said they would take 2 as excellent, but sadly it's not enough to produce it. Mitchie doesn't want to glue the O-rings together again, and we need to sell at least a few hundred to make a tool.
But apparently we have a 3D printer for that now.
Don't tell Mitchie that you can do this.
It's nice, isn't it?
He's going to be so mad after UNIBLOCK.
Yeah.
At this time we just printed them. Hundreds of shapes. Normally it goes just around one block, but here like a single O-ring goes through every single part. You'll see it. So
it took me 2 hours, yeah.
Yeah, not putting that O-ring back together again.
Never again.
QuantumX.
So with that resounding close to the UNIBLOCK project, we've put all of our lessons that we learned into this one new product, and there's been a lot of inspired features, a lot of reactional decisions, and it's made a very big difference to this monoblock.
What we have here is a special edition monoblock EK Quantum Momentum 2 for the Asus Z790 Maximus Extreme motherboard.
Number one thing, all the maintenance comments just could not be ignored. That was for sure the biggest flaw in the UNIBLOCK. Even if you committed to that hardware and was like, I'm definitely gonna have that motherboard, and a 3090 1 year after the 4090 released.
Yeah.
Like, even if you're prepared to do that, actually working on it, changing an M2 drive, changing a CPU, really wasn't fun. And it also highlighted maybe the weak points of our regular monoblocks, and we took it a step further, decided how we could make it as easy as possible. So the first thing after tearing down the entire motherboard and removing all the stock heatsinks is to install this one single, absolutely monolithic aluminium plate that covers all of the VRM, and it also covers the
Wi-Fi module.
Yeah, the LAN controller, and that sets up the base. You add the wiring directly to this, so this connects to the water zone ports at the bottom of the board. And with that prepared, then you can mount any air cooler, you can mount any AAO cooler just temporarily if you want to test the CPU quickly, if you don't want to do your whole build, but you still have your board prepared. Even if after a year you want to diagnose some problem and you don't want to put your loop back together to do it, that can run at any point. So it's essentially an upgrade for the board, and then in comes the monoblock.
So what we have here is a pretty standardish Momentum 2 monoblock from EK, and to use that with the heatsink itself, we just put some pads in this area here, on the M.2 drive as well, and then mount the CPU, thermal paste, and
yeah, paste it up.
you're good to go. 4 screws, exact mount.
Yep, and if you don't want to use paste, if you want to use liquid metal, also included will be all of the direct die accessories, the ILM replacement accessory. So then you have the choice, either you install the CPU block with the Extreme backplate and the ILM replacement, or you install it by using the delid tool and putting on the die guard and adding the direct die cold plate to the monoblock, and that will come in exactly the same way, sit on the pads, sit on the paste, the height's the same either way, and you're pretty much good to go.
Yeah. So one other weird thing about this block is the 4 ports, as we can see. So what's that about, Joe?
Yeah, effectively we incorporated a little tiny distribution plate into the monoblock, and this is tackling the modularity aspect of the unit block. So if we can't include the GPU, for obvious reasons of then locking you into one specific GPU, we made a very convenient connection for it. This can work in multiple ways, so you can treat it as a monoblock and you don't have to add a GPU. It's entirely up to you. You could run a distribution plate with 4 tubes like normal and leave those blanked off as they come. You could run a standard, effectively CPU or monoblock config with 2 tubes to the block, and then run 2 tubes out directly into the GPU. That effectively puts it in uniblock mode. And as a bonus, you can also run it in series. So if you're building a loop with no distro plate and you have a conventional case layout, you can run 1 tube into the GPU, from the GPU directly to the monoblock, and just 1 tube out of it. And that's quite strange to see, just 1 tube going to a CPU block.
Yeah, true.
So now we're gonna take this apart and have a look at how it's possible for all 3 of those configurations to work.
QuantumX.
So now we're ready to take a look inside and have a look at everything that's different. While we tried very hard to make it look like a conventional monoblock on the outside, we're gonna see lots of subtle differences. So let's get in there.
Yeah, first things first, we're gonna remove the sticker and dig right in. So yeah, as we can see, this is a pretty standard Velocity 2 RGA 1700 cold plate.
Yeah, that's all you would have to do to swap to direct die. It's just those 4 screws, put the die guard on the CPU, and that's it.
That's it. Next thing is the auto plate for the M.2. So So now it's gonna get a little bit tricky because we applied thermal compound below here, so we should probably swap that up. Put it somewhere safe.
This piece was made in 2 pieces because it sticks out from the monoblock. It has to fit under an active backplate if you have it in the slot. And you know, since it sticks out, we wanted to have it black, so that's anodized aluminium, and it's pasted directly onto the copper of the water block.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, right? So what I want to do now is remove the standout first, so we get a proper surprise party, right? So as a step further from the UNIBLOCK, we added some thermal sensors actually 2 thermal sensors and 1 flow indicator, which is communicated through this PCB, pogo pins to the heatsink over here that goes through the wire indirectly into the water zone of the motherboard itself. So that's a unique feature for this block.
So these are all mounted onto one custom PCB, which is concealed inside the standout piece. The LEDs are also glued in there, and everything is covered, so we don't have like a visible spinning flow indicator, but we have a concealed and accurate flow meter along with the temperature sensor on the inlet and outlet of the CPU. So it's not actually measuring temperature across the whole block or across the GPU block if it were connected or not. It's just purely across the CPU, and that was just because if you run a different combination of GPU block, you may not have a sensor prior to the inlet at all. If you ran it in series configuration, the coolant comes in here.
Yeah, exactly. Also, it keeps the sensors and everything quite hidden below the standout itself with the LEDs, so we tried our best with that as well. So yeah, as we can see here, this is not a standard steel plate that we normally use on Momentum 2 monoblocks and Velocity 2 CPU blocks. And as we can see here, a flow indicator mentioned before, and a very complicated O-ring that is now made from tooling. I'm happy about that. So yeah, what's interesting bit is this thing right here, right, Joe?
Yep.
So next thing on the list is
one last screw.
One last screw.
Yep. Every single screw that we took out was a stainless steel screw.
Yeah.
Including this one because it's internal. It's a wetted screw, and that's what holds inside the rather distinguishing part of this monoblock. So the main unique thing about this monoblock is the valves, which sit below the 2 lower ports. They are actuated by the stop plugs that are pre-installed or the lack thereof them. So they have a solid top and a very small diameter stem. So if the plug is installed, they get pushed down and open a passageway between the lower 2 ports. If a fitting is installed, they remain in a seated position, the valves are closed on the rear side, and consequently you don't get any flow between the first and second ports. It's not perfectly sealed. This is not O-ringed on every surface. However, it's sufficient to stop the flow reversing and to make sure that everything goes through the GPU block when 2 fittings are installed. When 2 plugs are installed together, they're both opened and the flow can go from the original inlet of the monoblock all the way around. If 1 fitting is installed and 1 plug is installed, such that the coolant comes from the GPU block to the monoblock, then it proceeds only forwards because just 1 valve will be closed and 1 valve will be open, so it will continue around the block through the CPU and exit from what is always the outlet. In every configuration, the top port is the outlet. One thing that's worth noting about the plugs which are used in this monoblock, they're actually solid on the inside. This is our standard quantum part, but if you would change it for a micro part or a torque without plug badge, they actually have a hexagon on the inside, and so it would not open the valve. So you must use a plug which is completely solid on the inside surface in order to actuate the valves. Otherwise you need to use the standard ones, and you can use either the black covers or the white covers that are now in the shop. Any fitting should be compatible so long as it has a hole in the middle, which pretty much fittings need to have.
QuantumX.
So there we have it. This is the whole product right here, and this is gonna hit the serial production.
Yep, if you enjoyed seeing the teardown and you want to see more content with this block, go and check out Attila's build video where he assembled it in its series configuration with a distribution plate. Maybe we'll get him to reconfigure it in uniblock mode at some point. And until then, if you want more QuantumX content, go and check out the PlayStation 5 episodes.
Like and subscribe, guys, and see ya later.